I use AI to help me. I use
Hmm.
AI to help me create rubrics, to create assignments. If I
Hmm.
have if I'm struggling with an assignment, like I don't think it's as accessible as I want it to be, then I will ask AI to help me like redesign it so that it's a little bit more accessible or more engaging. I think I definitely use AI as a tool as well to help me kind of like up my own game in terms of teaching.
Before listening to today's exciting episode, I just want to introduce myself. It's Dr. Andrew Rimby. I am the host of the Ivory Tower Boiler Room, an arts and culture podcast. I'm so excited that you're listening or watching. Please make sure that you follow us on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you're getting the podcast. Please review us. Please share the podcast. It really means a lot. The more exposure the podcast has, the more I can book exciting guests. There's a Patreon. Ad-free episodes are on the Patreon. I also release bonus content on there. I talk about our book club, which is free. We're discussing on February 1st Wuthering Heights in honor of the Emerald Fennel adaptation that's coming out. So if you want to join the book club, it's on Zoom. It's at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Just message me. I'll send you the Zoom link. Please make sure you're also following us on social media. We have a new TikTok account. It's Dr. Andrew Rimby. Long story short, I think TikTok could not handle the spicy queer male content that I was putting out there. So I had to create a new TikTok. I'm going to be extra careful now. Trust me. Also, Instagram, Facebook, Ivory Tower Boiler Room. I'll see you on there. And now, here's today's exciting episode. Hi, everyone. This is Dr. Andrew Rimby and my co host here in person,
Jambalakian.
and our trusted undergraduate perspective.
I'm Amina McKeithen. Hi.
And we are joined today with such an exciting guest. Her name is Stefanie Shapiro. She completed a doctorate program in writing at Drew University, very close actually to where we are at Kane. She holds an MA in forensic psychology and MPH from Harvard. Her work has been published in Dark Winter Literary Magazine, New Jersey Bards Poetry Review 2023 and 2024, Eastern Seabards Poetry Anthology 2024, Winsome and Platform Review. She teaches writing at Drew University, Montclair State University, and I know recently SUNY Maritime. So congratulations on that appointment.
Thank
She
you.
currently resides in northern New Jersey, so a fellow New Jerseyan. So
Hmm.
welcome to the program, Stefanie.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
So we were talking before the record button, and Amina asked you a really interesting question. So we're going to try to mimic that organic nature. So, Amina, if you can ask that question, I thought it was just really interesting.
So you do have a master's in public health from Harvard. Amazing. And my question was if you were still involved in public health in any way or still following public health news, even though you have this amazing literary career.
Yes, it is a great question. So I was explaining a little bit that I have this crazy eclectic background, which I find very interesting and fun, but it is a little bit like me trying to discover my own passions and trying to figure out how best I can use my own strengths and apply them in a situation where I would be rewarded like long term in a career, which I think is always a struggle for everyone. So yes, the whole getting my MPH was super fascinating and a wonderful experience. And I do follow public health news. I'm very interested in what's happening in the world regarding public health, but I'm not currently, practicing that. I decided I guess about 5 or 6 years ago now when I went back to Drew for my doctorate that I really just wanted to um, pursue something that I was passionate about, which is writing. I used to write when I was a kid and I was actually really good at it. But then I figured, oh no, this is not going to make me any money. I can't be a writer. And I can't be a teacher because neither of those things make you any money. So my mom was a special ed teacher when I was growing up, so I felt like pretty knowledgeable about that whole, thing. And I was like, I'm not going to do that. So I went back to school and I was like, you know what? I just want to write. I want to write my own stuff, obviously try to get published, but I just want to write because I enjoy it. And I really love teaching. I love teaching so much. And so after I got my doctorate, I decided that I was going to try and, start teaching. And so, adjuncting at various places. And as Andrew just said, I did actually just get a full-time position at SUNY Maritime. So I'm super excited about starting that, I
Oh,
guess, in
wow.
actually like next week. Um, so yeah, I think that yes, I feel much more rewarded in all aspects except financially.
So, like, I'm so curious, Stephanie, because of your background with different disciplines, do you feel that you're able to provide your students such a different perspective of having industrial experience or knowing different industries than, say if you just went straight from undergrad to the PhD to then teach and like really, didn't necessarily know all of the career opportunities outside of an academic system?
100%, 100%. I think that I hope to bring to my students experiences and knowledge that transcend the classroom, right? About just being able to live life and be able to navigate life and just kind of develop a lot of those kind of socio-emotional skills that I think are lacking, especially, in younger generations. And I do feel like, my experiences with psychology, which is, another one of my degrees, and I've taught psychology as well and public health and now in the humanities. I mean, this idea of humanities, right? Like it's basically the story of people, right? Like this idea of like what we have kind of created, what we believe, what we argue about. It's all told through books and art and history and language and big ideas, right? So I do feel like the eclectic background that I have feeds really well into this idea of like what is humanities and why should we be studying it. I think that, you know, as with most things in life, I mean, psychology is also a good example that it's infused daily in our existence, right? Whether you are like book smart about psychology or not, you are constantly engaging with people. You are constantly engaging with why people do what they do. You're engaging always with yourself, right? This internal dialogue and self-awareness of why do I do what I do and why am I doing this and what are my triggers and what causes me to make certain choices and decisions in life, right? So I kind of feel like, the humanities is constantly there for all of us, whether you're just, going to like debate with someone about a movie that you saw and an ending, right? Like, oh, this moving ending was this or that, and kind of debating about that. Um, I think that all of that is, engaging in the humanities in a daily kind of mundane way.
Do you feel that you're really cognizant of, because I know I talk about this a lot, Jan talks about it. Amina even like sees it with, some of her peers, but we're not going to call out anything, anyone specifically, but just this lack of, I don't want to say taking the humanities seriously, but even just questioning why read. Or there was a new book I really love, like How to Read Now by Elaine Castillo. And like there's all these questions about trying to defend the art of the humanities. Do you feel that you go into the
Mhm.
classroom ready to be on the defense, or is there a way that you kind of combat these stereotypes or misconceptions about the humanities?
So, I mean, obviously, I'm mostly teaching writing classes, a lot of first year writing classes, and I also have taught English for academic purposes, which is like an ESL, so to non-native speakers. I think that generally I try to get people excited about writing and excited about the English language. I think that I definitely am constantly trying to connect the applicability of what we're doing in the classroom to life in general, and that there is definitely a transcendence and an ability to apply everything in class to your life and the way that you live it. I think that this idea of creativity and being able to dive deep into that and lean into our own creativity and our own imagination is something that I think is genuinely appealing to everyone, but I think often kind of sucked out of you as you get older, right? Because for whatever reason, I mean, I think obviously education, if it becomes very rote and very academic, can potentially be boring for some students. But I do really feel like there's such an expansiveness to not only writing, creativity, and kind of being able to communicate yourself and communicate with others in a way that's professional and also personable, right? And I think kind of finding that line for a lot of students and people in general can be difficult. So I think that, back in the day, when I was in school. I took diligent notes. I would listen to everything the teacher said. I would write it down and I would memorize it. And
Yep.
I would just regurgitate it back
Yep.
to my teacher exactly the way
Yep.
that they said it to me. And I didn't really understand why anyone had trouble like getting A's on exams or tests, because my thought was, you just tell them what they want to hear, right? Like that's easy to do. Take notes, study your notes, memorize them, and give it back to them, right? And, I don't want to say obviously, but I was a really good student. I was really committed to doing well and getting straight A's. And I was always that, perfectionist who's going to do well in school. So I think for me, it was okay. I mean, I think I learned, but what I did not learn very well was this ability to kind of be able to analyze and critically think.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I did not learn that well. And so I think for me, what's so essential when I'm working with my students is I want to give them freedom to explore their own interrogation of ideas for themselves. I want to be a facilitator, right, of learning. I don't want you to give back what I have said to you. I will give you guidance, right? I will give you guidance based on my expertise and my experiences and my knowledge. But then I want you to take that and do with it what you will. I say to my students a lot, like, when you're learning to write in a first year writing course, I do think that there's, guidelines that need to be followed to help elevate you as a writer, right? There needs to be some structure. There needs to be maybe even some templating going on. But I say to them, like, I'm giving you rules so that you can learn them and then break them, right? Like, all the best writers break the rules, right? You can't really do that right now because you're literally just learning how to do that, but I will give you those skills. You will become a master and then you can break the rules too, you know?
Mhm.
So I think I'm really, it's important for me to like not just say, here's something to read, analyze it according to what I expect you to do or the way that I interpret it. I want you to like really unpack it and look at it from your perspective and give me your thoughts and your ideas about it, right? Um, I think that there's a lot of lethargy and laziness around this idea of critically thinking and really using our own sense of creativity. I have a son who's 11, and he would drop out of middle school tomorrow if I let him, right? I mean, he's so uninterested in anything academic. He just wants to sit and game all the time. I had to tell him the story about this like Korean dude who was like gaming for like 48 hours and died. You know,
Wow.
That's a good warning story. I like that panic story. Uh,
there's a little bit of fear when you parent. You got to instill a little bit of fear.
no, no, I'm not a parent yet, but I definitely would go through. I would go in that direction that you did. But you're right, Stephanie. There's so many podcast episodes right now about that very topic, which is, you know, students would rather be playing Fortnite, or you can't get students away from their cell phones, and like New York City just banned phones during the school day. I mean, this is a
Mhm.
very timely
Well,
topic.
that's what I wanted to ask. The problem that I have is I give discussion questions to students, and I feel they're just going to AI and grabbing a fragment that they see and dropping it on their post page. And
Mhm.
have you found a way to enforce um, their own reading?
It may be freezing here in the Northeast, but when I received my copy of the Gay and Lesbian Review, it warmed me up instantly. Their new issue is all about kink culture. Let me explain a little. I'm going to read what Jeremy C. Fox, the managing editor, has to say about this issue. He says this issue marks a bit of a departure for the Gay and Lesbian Review as we crack open the bedroom door to explore the practices and paraphilias that interest or obsess some LGBT people and the roots of their appeal. Several future articles delve deeply into why certain kinks turn some of us on, and whether we can discern historical and aesthetic rationales behind these fixations. This magazine features articles such as The Power of the Foot. Oh, yeah, they're going there with foot kinks. Maplethorpe's Gift to America, Reclaiming the Sacred Dungeon. Tumblr was a gateway to kink, and Cruising with Boyd McDonnell. You definitely want to get your hands on the kink issue here. I have an exclusive promo code that those at the Gay and Lesbian Review have granted to you all. It is ITBR Choice. Enter it when you check out on the glreview.org, and you will get a free issue of the magazine. I hope you all enjoy your reading, and it'll definitely keep you nice and cozy.
Yeah. So, I mean, this AI thing obviously is challenging and exciting for everyone, right? So I think this is a work in progress. I do not feel like I have any definitive answer, but I have tried to implement some things to help with, the introduction of AI, and it just, it's just rapid and rampant use of it. Um, so like, first of all, I actually have, I teach a variety of classes, but like in my first year writing course, I have them actually install, I just totally blanked on the term, an extension. That's the word I'm looking for, a Chrome extension. So like I require them to use Google Docs. I ask them to install this Chrome extension, which is like called like there's Draftback or Google Process Doc. And in effect, that extension will track like their writing in real time. So like if they were to use AI, it becomes much more difficult for them to cheat on that extension, right? Like they would have to use AI and then type everything from the AI into the Google Docs themselves. But if they did it perfectly, I would say, hey, there's no way you're writing a first draft perfectly on the first time. So I would see, because it actually shows you not only what is written, how fast it's written, how many edits are made, how many deletions are made, all of that. It shows everything. And you can actually go through and look at them typing it. You can do like slow speed, faster speed. So I have asked them to install that extension. Last semester, I did an experiment. And I said, I had one class I did not require them to use it. And my other class, I required them to use it. And I had like many more people clearly cheating because they're not crediting AI, using AI, not crediting it. And also, I have said, I do not want you to use this to write this paper. So, and the class that I've asked them to use the extension, I had very minimal issues with using AI inappropriately. And for the couple of students I did have an issue, they hadn't installed the extension. They kept saying, "Oh, I can't do it. I don't know how to do it." And finally, then I saw their drafts, and I said, you need to install this extension, or you're just gonna get a 0 on this assignment. And then I could tell that they actually genuinely wrote it themselves. I frame it to the students that this is something to help them become better writers and also allow me an ability to help them revise and give better feedback. If I can see your writing process, it allows me as your instructor to give much more productive and specific feedback to you. And it also allows you to kind of then go back and see where you were struggling more, where you had more strengths and areas where you can continue to work on. So that's something that I have implemented with a high degree of success. I also, am kind of, as I start this new job at SUNY, I'm actually going to toy with allowing them to use AI much more than I have in the past. So my attitude about AI is it is a tool, so like any tool, you can either use that well or you could not use that well. I think that for certain aspects, it can be really helpful. Like I'm going to be teaching a technical writing course. And so I'm going to allow them to use AI, like specifically like with introductions. Like I'm going to say, on the first day, hey, provide like a personal introduction, provide, you write an introduction, then have like ChatGPT write an introduction for you, and then compare the two. What is the difference in tone? What is the difference in content? And then I also, I haven't done this yet, but I have been thinking about having them write an essay using AI entirely, like giving proper prompts, having them write an essay with AI, and then having them go back and having them revise fully on their own, and or having them write an essay themselves entirely on their own, and then using AI to help them revise the essay. So one or the other. So I am gonna bring in AI more. I think especially for like a technical writing course, I think that makes a lot of sense because I just don't think that most people are writing their own cover letters this day, writing their own CVs. I mean, especially for technical writing, a lot of people are using AI, and I would like my students to be able to use it properly. I require them to credit AI as they use it. So I am very detailed in, the fact that they need to add an addendum. They need to include, what the prompt was that they used, which AI they used, how they used it, and to even give a comment on like whether they think that was helpful, in what ways was it helpful. So I actually sometimes think it's more work for them to use AI because they need to do a lot more work then to kind of justify its use. Um, and I also do allow them to use AI generally without a credit necessarily, just to help brainstorm or to outline. So
Mm.
like if they want to brainstorm ideas, I'm fine with that. And I don't necessarily require them to credit AI for that. Or if they just want to help with an outline. I think pre-writing skills are super important, and I'm a big fan of the outline. Sometimes, depending on the class, I require an outline, sometimes I don't. So if I don't require it, usually due to time constraints, etc., then I will just tell them that if they want to use AI to help with their outline, that's fine too.
Mm.
So yeah, and then I do bring in a lot of like social media apps. Like I use Hypothesis to help like to do with social annotation. So kind of Jen, to your point, I don't think people read anything I assign. And so I try to get around that and require them to read. So if I require them to annotate, then I'm hoping that they have to read at least read like a couple paragraphs. Um, and maybe it's a little bit more fun for them because they can see what their peers are saying and comment on what their peers are saying.
Yeah, I was going to ask Stephanie, do you feel that, and you've addressed it a little, but with the art of rhetoric or, persuasive speaking, writing, and using social media, are there ways that you find that students really appreciate that you're meeting them with the tools that they're using? And like, if so, what do they learn from you providing this more scholarly perspective of like what you can learn when it comes to the persuasiveness of, say, a social media app, like what content they're consuming and not just being a passive, doom scroller, but actually an active scroller of content that's sometimes educational and sometimes, may just be for fun.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think we spend some time talking about this idea of, rhetoric and this idea of like pathos, ethos, logos, kairos, and this idea of how figurative language can be persuasive and different types of figurative language. And so I do bring in a lot of social media to those conversations, like just this idea of like, looking at different podcasts, different social media sites, asking them to sometimes create their own social media, site and kind of, as like part of their multimodal project and their work, and really looking at the persuasiveness and how different social media sites and magazines and newspapers are really kind of potentially presenting a position that is entirely inaccurate, but is so convincing and so persuasive that you think it's true, right? And so I think there's this idea of like not necessarily handpicking and saying, oh, this site is really wrong and just, they're just lying and, there's a lot of bandwagon and other like things going on here, but just really asking them to be skeptical, right? Like skeptical about everything that they read, everything, right? Because at the end of the day, like, you're going to have to, for your own self, be able to say, like, this is something that is actually true, it's not true. And also to be aware of when it impacts you in a way that maybe for whatever reason, this is where the psychology comes in, like for whatever reason you feel like either really drawn into the site or really repulsed by it. And then I think actually assessing that a little bit more academically, like why am I really drawn in? Is it because, they're using a lot of ethos, they're using a lot of pathos, and actually none of that actually is probably true. I mean, they're just totally playing on my emotions right now, but maybe everything they're saying is entirely false.
Mm.
And being able to actually be able to be like a really good judge and be discriminating in what you really choose to believe and what you choose to therefore act on, right? So I think, obviously say social media is everywhere, and like gaming, video games are everywhere. And I think that it is really important from my perspective not to make any of my own judgments about what people are watching or reading, but to just get them educated enough to have them question for themselves what they are watching and reading.
Yeah, you're having me think about um, planning my British literature course right now, and I'm actually thinking maybe I'll do a social media assignment, like where they have to think about what would Geoffrey Chaucer's Instagram account look like? Like what
Yeah, that would be
aesthetic would
awesome.
it look like? What, would he post there? And I think like what for you, Stefanie, is the hardest obstacle in the writing classroom? Is it thinking about which texts or which material you're going to teach to say teach an argumentative essay versus um, the literary analysis or textual analysis? Or
Mhm.
is it not really about what you're teaching? It's more just getting the students engaged and excited that they're in a writing classroom that they have to take, right? Like that's the biggest hurdle I find when I teach writing is like bringing in pop culture examples that resonates, but also still teaching the foundation. Like how can we do both at the same time?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. It is a hard question. I do think if I had to say what is the biggest overall global challenge about teaching writing, it is definitely about getting students engaged and excited about the writing journey and the writing process. I think my goal is to always provide assignments, interactions, and experiences that really engage students and make them excited to a degree as much as possible about coming to my class. Or if I'm teaching async, I mean, that's a whole other, then it's like, okay, like I'm gonna try to engage you with my video. How engaging am I right now? Do you want to watch me for at least 5 minutes or maybe at least 2 minutes? So listen, I try not to lecture. I think lecturing is it's just not what I do. I try to avoid it. I mean, obviously I'm going to speak for extended periods of time, sometimes about what the assignment is, about answering questions, but I definitely don't believe really in lecturing as in talking about the material I've asked them to read ad nauseum, right? Like I just don't think that I think that I like to instill confidence in my students and I believe in their competence. So I think if I assign a reading, like if you have questions, I'm happy to answer those questions. But if I've assigned a reading, I'm going to just trust that you have done the reading and you have understood everything about it. So we can kind of have much more active, engaged, experiential experiences in the classroom and spend our time more in small group work and discussion based and other just experiential activities, right? I think engaging the students is the hardest challenge. I try really hard to kind of bring in what I think are fun things for them to do. And to just also allow them opportunities to tap into areas of strengths that they may not know they even had. So like it's really what I find the most rewarding part of the class is I always open with like a 10-minute free writing activity where it's all about creative writing. So, it's just, I do have a book I pull from, but whatever, you can just make up whatever. Like what was the best thing that happened to you last night between the hours of 10 and 12 p.m., right? Like just random stuff, what was the memory about your mother's hands, right? Like so you can go really deep or you can go really kind of superficial. And I say to them, I want you to interpret this however you would like. If you want to go and talk about, so this became a really engaging, wonderful experience last semester, specifically for me with my first year writing class at MSU. Um, I had students at the beginning of the semester who did not want to share, who wrote like a sentence, who didn't want to write anything at all. And I said to them, so another thing is I cold call and I require everyone to share. So I say to them, you get a pass up to like 2 or 3 times in the semester. If I call on you and you really, really don't want to share, you get a pass. But other than those 2 or 3 classes, you will have to share everything. And by the end of the semester, I was just floored at the huge evolution and improvement in all of them, every single one of them, in their writing abilities, their abilities to just dive deep and really hone in on details that they were not doing at the beginning, using a lot of sensory words and sensory images to convey their thoughts and their feelings. Everything about the technique of writing was improved. And also just their public speaking skills improved. They were more confident. We developed a rapport in that class that was unbelievable. I mean, like none of these students really knew each other. A couple did, but by the end, like they all were just so comfortable with each other. And as the class continued, there was just so much more intimacy and vulnerability shared. And so, I say to them, listen, there's no wrong. The only wrong answer to this assignment is not writing anything at all. If you write anything, it is the right answer.
Mm.
Even if it's off topic. I had some students that were off topic, but that's okay. They've interpreted it in the way that they saw fit and they wrote something, and that's okay. Um, but I feel like, I really think it gave a lot of the students confidence in a way that they didn't have. And I had several students comment on that, like specifically to me, saying that, it was a really kind of scary experience to do that, specifically to share, but that they really actually started to just like kind of get more comfortable as the semester went on, trusting that like everyone was kind of in the same boat. And they start to really take some of the skills we talked about, just writing our essays and just writing in general, and bringing them into those kind of short 10-minute writing assignment prompts.
Wow.
And like I had a student come up to me at the end of the semester, and she was, like we all do, right? There's always like a couple students that you really feel like you touch, right? Like that you really have an
Yes.
impact on. And, really that's why we do the job, right? For those like one or two students every semester that say like, oh my God, this class really changed my life, I mean, that's why we do it. And I had a student come up to me, and her writing 100% evolved and improved. I mean, she really came very, very far. And she came up to me at the end and she said, this writing class was just so influential for me. I literally felt like I did not know how to write at all. I never had a teacher give me any feedback on my writing before.
Wow.
Whoa.
That blew my mind. I mean, that's not even like a pat on the back for me. I mean, that's just crazy. That's ridiculous that you can go through high school, especially, and get like no feedback on your writing at all.
Now that the spring semester is here, I am so excited to let you all know about a publisher, an independent publisher that's celebrating 40 years of great books called Broadview Press. I love Broadview Press. I have so many of their editions of classic literature like Wuthering Heights, which is coming out soon, and it's our book club choice. And they have so many academic books for instructors and for students and the general public. So I've had so many exciting guests on, from guests talking about The Wonderful Wizard of Oz, guests talking about vampire literature, horror literature. I'm looking at you, Jeffrey Andrew Weinstock. I cannot wait because I have two exciting guests coming on soon. And I've recorded their episode, so I know that it's going to be such an interesting conversation. The first is Rachel Tucholsky, who wrote a book called Writing on Fire, a fierce yet friendly guide to writing humanities essays in college. I've used excerpts of it for my Writing 2 course at Montclair. It has gone over so well. I just love what Rachel does. And we get into this in our episode about this metaphor about writing on fire, like how that's a great way to think about free flowing, brainstorming, creative ideas, and getting into that flow state, which, as Rachel explains, happens not just in writing, but in many other avenues. And then the other guest that I have on is David Starkey, who wrote a book called Academic Writing Now, a brief guide for busy students. It is designed to cover the basics of a college writing course in a concise, student-friendly format. Each chapter concentrates on a crucial element of composing an academic essay and is capable of being read in a single sitting, which, for a generation, myself included, I think all of us now, just consumed by digital media or just this attention grabbing technology, reading in a single sitting is definitely a plus. So head to Broadview Press, use the promo code Ivory Tower, and you'll get 20% off every single book in their collection. There's also a really cool digital library collection they have. So if you're a librarian, take a look at that. Message me. If you're a librarian, I'd be happy to show you what that new collection looks like. And I hope you all enjoy your reading.
I've had actually a couple students say that to me. So I believe it. I believe it. But, I give a lot of feedback, right? I think that I try to find that middle ground, right, of not giving too much that I overwhelm you and you are absolutely going to shut down and not read anything I say. But I try to, do the sandwich, like start with positives because there are always positives, kind of stick in some things that we can work on and then end with some positives. And I really think that as the drafts, we do multiple drafts, multiple revisions. I try to look at the higher order concerns in the earlier drafts and then kind of deal with later order concerns in the later draft. But it depends on the student, right? Like you got to individualize it. So if a student has a lot of higher order issues and they really are kind of constantly struggling with that, then we just are going to stick with the higher order issues and we're not going to worry about the later order issues at all, right? So I think that it just requires, you getting to know your students. I think the more I got to know each student and the more I got to understand kind of what their challenges were, which I did, then it was easier for me to kind of provide more tailored feedback. But I think that that's so important, right? I mean, my attitude, I always say to my students, like, I think the most important part of the writing process is the revising. Like revision is the most important part. And, like you have those students that say like, I just write one draft and I'm done. Like what is this multiple draft thing? Why are we doing this? Like, and also this, it creates so much pressure, right? Like this idea that you have only one
Right.
chance to get something perfect. Like I
Wow.
said, forget that. Like that is literally not how any really great writer writes. No really great writer writes one draft and is done. I mean, Stephen King is like, I like write a draft and I delete 80% of what I wrote,
Mm,
right?
mm.
So
Oh yeah,
I
those
think that this
courses made
idea,
me so nervous, Stephanie. I
Mhm.
remember when like those courses that maybe only had a midterm essay and a final essay, and like they were both maybe 40% of the grade. And you're like, I really hope that, I nailed every part of this essay. But yeah, I think the draft process is really, it's so valuable. And, the way that you're approaching it with your students, I can tell they're really appreciative and, they might not appreciate it in that moment that you're having them do it, but seeing that evolution, I agree. It's so powerful to see like where your students begin and where the class ends together, right? Because they
Yeah.
are they are in collaboration together as a class.
Mhm.
Like they rely on each other too. Like, right? That's the hope is that they
Mhm.
pull each other up.
You hope.
exactly, exactly, exactly. So, yeah, I mean, I remember, like, as I said, I was like a straight A student, so I always felt a lot of pressure to do well. But I remember like sitting in my AP history class, like I was in high school, and she gave us like an essay exam, and I opened up the exam question, and I just blanked, like I couldn't think of anything. And I literally had like a panic attack in the middle of class. I
Mhm.
was like crying. She like took me out of the classroom. And, I think about the pressure that I felt academically, and, it was no good, right? Like that doesn't serve anyone. Now, to be fair, I don't think all of my students have that much pressure around grades. Some do, some don't, probably most of them don't, but but that's good, right? Like my attitude is always, like I don't want you to worry about the grade, and I know that there's a lot of different like grading models out there now. Like I still mostly use a traditional grading system, but I do and am interested in kind of looking at other types of grading modules. Um, I think though that even with the traditional grading system, I do allow for a lot of flexibility and I do really take labor into account. So I think I try to avoid grade inflation because I don't really support that, right? But I do recognize work and effort. So, if a student has consistently worked hard, see that they've
Yes.
worked hard and they have made progress, they will probably get an A, even if their final paper may not be at the same level of a student who actually is like really on point and is clearly a great writer and has also taken a lot of the feedback, like that, both of those A's may be different, may look different, but I'm okay with that, right? Because I think that it's really for me about the journey and about the effort and the work that's put in. And I think everyone is at a different place. If you start here and you come here, whether that's like, that is an A for me, right? Even if that's like different than the other person who may be on this part of the spectrum, right? So I think that these are all like interesting things to think about. I think in teaching, the thing is it's not just about knowing your craft well, right? It's also about knowing how to teach well. And I
Yes.
think that is something that I think, a lot of schools do provide a lot of professional development around, like I think that some schools are better at that than others. But I do think, when I was like back in the day, like I don't think my teachers actually got any education on how to teach. I think they were just like, I know my biology, right? I'm a good chemist, right?
Hmm.
So here's all the information and I'm just going to give it to you, right? And whoever I think I can give it to you. And you just have to kind of like figure it out, right? I mean, obviously we have come so far. I think this idea of like multimodal work and multimodal assignments and making assignments accessible to everyone, like that wasn't happening when I was back in school.
Mhm.
Um, but we also didn't have AI. We also didn't have like, I mean, I took hand notes, like bringing computers to classes. That wasn't really even a thing.
Mhm.
So I'm totally dating myself. But like, but that's okay because I think that there's just so much that has happened in the world of education and higher ed. And I think that in many ways, I so appreciate the experiences I had as a student because it helps inform me on kind of what I think is really vital and important for us to kind of work on and examine now in higher education.
Mm. Yeah, I love what you're saying, Stephanie. I mean,
The knowing how to teach well, any particular strategy? I know you've mentioned some that you felt worked especially well.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, like I like to do a lot of creative writing as much as possible, free writing prompts. I mean, I joke around with my students a lot, like I try to bring a lot of humor into the class. I try to make things fun and light. Like, I joke around a lot. Some students laugh, some students don't. And then I joke more. I'm like, okay, like if no students laugh, then I just say, that was totally a joke. I guess I'm not gonna like become a stand-up comedian because that was just
Mhm.
totally lost. I mean, I think I'm always joking around with them. And I also think, they kind of, it forces them a little bit to pay more attention because I kind of think at the beginning of the semester, it's like, whatever, here's another class. I'm not really interested in writing, for the ones that are not interested in writing. And here's another professor trying to engage us. And I'm just not very interested, right? But then I kind of think like, we start to joke around, I start to get to know them. And I think that then I think for a lot of them, they think to themselves, well, actually, maybe this isn't so bad. There's a lot of like, it's just, I try not to bring a lot of pressure into the classroom, right? I try to make it pretty light and fun. And I think that that's important for me to kind of create that tone in the class. And I think that as the students kind of start to really trust that, I think they start to chill out a little too and just become more engaged. Like, okay, why not hang out and pay attention? Like this is a little bit more fun than I thought. Like I had a lot of students say that to me, right? Like I was really dreading this course, but it ended up being my favorite course because
yeah.
it was kind of fun. So I ask for a lot of feedback from the students too. I do conferences. When I do, I'm actually going to also bring in, this is another thing I'm going to bring in. I haven't done it yet, but I'm going to bring in like a custom bot to my class. So it'll be like
Custom what?
A bot.
Bot.
a bot. So
B.
like an AI bot. So
Yeah,
like
no,
you
yeah,
can,
explain, Stephanie. Thank you.
yeah. So like you can like, so I'll have my students, it'll be like a custom bot for the class and I can call it like the tutoring bot or, like whatever, you can call it a syllabus bot, whatever you want. Any information you want to kind of put into the bot. So I like feed the information into the bot, I create it, and then I'll put a link on like whatever the learning management system site, like Canvas, whatever. and then they can click on the bot. And then any questions they may want to ask me or their peers, they could just ask the bot. So like they could say, hey, I've missed 5 classes this semester. Am I going to fail the class? And then the
Oh,
bot will
okay.
come back and say, hey, you are allowed to miss 4 classes. And every class after the fourth class, you're going to you're going to miss like 2 points off your final grade. And then, the bot might say, so there's a high chance you may fail this class. Here's what you need to do, or you need to talk to the professor. So you kind of like, I give instructions
Mhm.
to the AI bot. And so I would say to the AI bot, like, please use like a friendly tone and please, whatever. And I would give it instructions. I would feed the syllabi into the bot. So then the bot has all the
Right.
syllabus information. I would feed like hypothesis information. So if students have questions about how to use hypothesis, they can say to the bot, how do you use hypothesis? And then the bot will say, oh, great question. Here's how you use hypothesis, right? So you can like feed as much information into the bot. So I like give the bot instructions and then the students can ask questions. So I'm going to do that for like more administrative information right now. Like I'll feed the syllabi in. So if the students have questions on the syllabus, if the students have questions on how to use hypothesis or like the learning management system or whatever, then they can ask the bot that.
Mm.
And so
Yeah,
of
I'm
course
gonna
two
show
reasons.
Jan
Yeah.
when we're all fair, Stephanie. I'll show her what a bot looks like,
Yeah.
Yeah,
just
yeah,
because I
yeah,
know
yeah.
she's like picturing maybe like Obi-Wan Kenobi or
Yeah.
something.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
But yes, yes,
So
but this is such an interesting strategy, Stephanie, because then you don't have to do those constant emails. Like, as it says in the syllabus, quote, dot, 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 dot. And like that takes a lot of our
Yeah.
labor energy as
exactly.
professors.
Exactly. Like I'm trying to make it more efficient for myself. So this is totally a selfish interest. But also, I think it's just much more fun for students to ask the bot than to email
Mhm.
me or to ask their peers, right? Like it's just more fun. And I think, again, it's a tool, right? So I don't think you're really reading the syllabus that I post. I mean, we go over it, we talk about it in small groups, whatever. You can ask quizzes for the syllabus. I mean, whatever approach as a professor you want to embark upon to get a student to actually read the syllabus, feel free. But I don't really think they're reading it. So I figure like maybe it'd be more fun to just ask the bot, and then
Mhm.
like I was thinking about go throughout the semester creating a bot, having the students create a bot themselves on like more
Mm.
content-based information. So like, having them work in small groups and like devoting a couple class sessions to creating a bot. So it's like, okay, think about what was challenging for you in writing this like rhetorical analysis, right? Whatever was challenging, what you think the bot could be helpful, please like input all of that into the bot. So then students could actually say like, I'm having trouble writing an introduction. I'm having trouble writing a thesis or a central claim. Like, can you please give me some help on how to do that? And then the bot can be like, sure, blah, 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 blah. And then giving them surveys, right, throughout the semester to help ascertain whether this is what's working well, what's not working well, so that I can refine as needed and revise.
Yeah. Well, as we, you know, wrap up, which Stephanie, this has been so wonderful. I feel like, you know, we always learn so much from our
Yes.
guests, and
Thank
you've really opened my eyes, and I know Jan and Amina's eyes. So thank you for that. Is a question about our own mental slash work expectations. Like, how are you, especially going into a new job, how are you managing your own work-life balance? Just because like that's something I am like
No,
being very mindful of
you're
as I enter
you're
the
good at
fall.
that compared to me.
Well, I think though it's something where I'm curious, Stephanie, like is there something like you have so much exciting projects, but also like where is the time that you're going to be able to put the computer, shut it down and, you know, go out for what you need to do to fill your soul and spirit?
Hmm.
It's a great question. I am constantly asking myself, how does everyone do it? Like I
Hmm.
feel very consumed by work, I think that especially with teaching, right? There's
Mm.
constant grading when the semester's in semester, right?
Hmm.
Constant grading, constant things I'm always thinking I could do better. I can add to this, so like I can just add, I can make more videos, I can create new assignments, I can change my rubric. I mean, it's literally never ending. So
Hmm.
I think that I'm not sure I have a great answer as to how to manage that. I try when I'm not like working to take, some breaks. But I also, some of it's a little bit forced, right? Like I'm a single parent, I have an 11-year-old, like I have like friends and relationships in my life that are super important to me, and I love exercising. So it's like, I feel like, I will work for a couple hours and I will say I'm going to work for this many hours in this day, but then I'm going to take my son to the movies or I'm going to go for a run, right? Like I just I just think that it's important to there's so many priorities I do have, and I definitely cannot spend all of my time working. I think that I try to be efficient, right? So I try to be able to reuse things as appropriate. I try to make a lot of lists of things I have to do so I don't forget things and they don't fall through the cracks. I use AI to help me. I use
Mhm.
AI to help me create rubrics, to create assignments.
Mm.
If I have like, if I'm struggling with an assignment, like I don't think it's as accessible as I want it to be, then I will ask AI to help me like redesign it so that it's a little bit more accessible or more engaging. So I think I definitely use AI as a tool as well to help me kind of like up my own game in terms of teaching.
Mm.
Um, but
Welcome to Severed, a podcast suite dropping new episodes every Monday. Severed True Crime and Severed Paranormal episodes deep dive into murder, mysteries, and the otherworldly in a concise format. A 7-minute story to frame the case with thoughtful analysis and our usual banter.
We sometimes find the lighter side of darker cases. We offer 3 spin-off shows, Severed Strange Stories, Severed Haunted You, and Severed Serial Killers that highlight the unusual to lighthearted topics from the digital dumpsters of true crime, haunted universities, and the minds of madness like Ted Bundy and Jeffrey Dahmer.
We are your co-hosts. I'm Harry Chambers.
And I'm Drew Hudson. Listen on all major podcast platforms, including Rogue Media Network and Radio Garden State. Follow us on Instagram at severed_podcast.
Are you a fan of classic Hollywood movies?
Are you a fan of queer cinema?
Then do we have the podcast for you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Christian Garcia.
And I'm Luke Del Mar.
And we are your hosts of That Old Gay Classic Cinema, where we take a look at some of the greatest films of all time and analyze them through a queer theoretical lens.
Let's be honest. LGBTQIA plus people have been a part of Hollywood since its inception, and this podcast celebrates those artists and entertainers of yesteryear while also taking a closer look at the queer-coded characters and stories in classic Hollywood films long before queer representation entered the mainstream.
So follow us down the road of classic cinema as we give you a guide to some of the films that touched our hearts, brains, and even gave us courage to be ourselves.
You can listen to That Old Gay Classic Cinema wherever you get your podcasts, and be sure to follow us on Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok.
All right, listeners, we're ready for our close-up.
I don't know. I mean, the grading thing is real. I mean, that is like giving feedback to the extent that I want to give feedback for 25 students in a class, and you have like 4 or 5 classes a semester. I mean, that is like, I don't really know how people do that. I don't know how people, I keep thinking, do people do that better than I do that? Like I think it takes up a ton of time, a ton of time.
It's
And
a ton of time.
I,
Was,
I,
oh, go ahead. I just had one question on whether, did you want to finish what you were saying?
no, I just,
Um,
I don't, I just, it does boggle my mind how other
It
people
does.
also
It's
do
a
that.
fact that I have, as my students probably know, this anticipatory anxiety, even that starts in July, knowing that 100 young people are going to be facing me. And so if you have any strategies for and then I feel, oh, I should be working all the time to prepare, even after 35 years. But my question was digital versus hard copies. Are you still giving out hard copies, or do you go with the Canvas copy
Yeah, I just do everything digitally now.
digitally?
Yeah, I used to require some hard copies, and I just, with Google Docs, like I do love Google Docs because of the
Mhm.
collaborative nature, like so we do a lot of peer reviews and we do a lot of like drafts, right? So I think Google Docs is just the easiest way to do that so that students can share with each other, they can share with me, you can like track changes, track revisions, histories. So I just do that. I mean, I'm also, I do like not killing as many trees. I mean, although, AI is also environmentally, as people have said, not super friendly. So I don't know. You know what? I'm kind of like, I do the best I can, right? I mean, we all just have to do the best we can. I think digital copies are just easier, right? Like it's just easier. It's less money for students to have to put out. I mean, I remember spending so many hundreds and hundreds of dollars on textbooks, right? So it's nice that students don't have to do that. Like I use a lot of open access and open source materials,
Hmm.
and or I put up PDFs like through Canvas or whatever. So yeah, I just think it's easier. And I
Yeah.
think also it's not like generationally for this generation. I just think that, I just don't think it's going to work, right? Like, I just think
Hmm.
that the students in college now and younger generations are just, it's like, what is this hard copy thing? So,
Yeah. Well, Stephanie, this has been a pleasure. Is there, any site or social media you want to plug for yourself for everyone to follow you, or if they want to, keep in touch with your exciting strategies and pedagogy?
that was my summer project, Andrew, and I have failed because I have run out of time. So I have nothing up. I'm trying to get a website up. Summer
Okay.
project, summer's almost over. So no, but you can share my email, like, my Gmail address that you have.
Oh, yeah, by the time,
Stephanie.Shapiro.
yeah, no, thank you, Amina. Yeah, by the time the episode airs, if your website is up, just let us, email me and I'll plug it in the show notes. So yeah,
Okay,
there's
awesome.
still time. There's
Awesome.
still time. The episode is going to come out in probably a month and a half. So if the website happens to appear, well, we could, but yes, I'll share your email definitely with everyone in the show
Yeah.
notes. But Stephanie, thank you so much for coming on. It was a pleasure talking to you. And, you know,
I'm gonna email you with like questions of support.
yes, Jan might
Yeah.
even be reaching out to
Yes.
you, which is excellent.
Yes.
So
Yes.
thank you,
Well,
Steph.
I'm
Yes.
happy. Thank you. I was just saying I'm so happy because I honestly feel like, I don't take credit for all of my ideas, right? Like it's all about like the collegial experience and like talking to
Mhm.
other educators and reading from other educators. So I think that that's one thing that's so beautiful about being in this community of teaching
Yes.
is that I think that people are so open with sharing information and so willing to collaborate. And that's just honestly such a beautiful, like warm, fuzzy feeling being in that community. So thank you.
Yes.
Thank you guys
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thank
Yes.
you.
Thank you. Thank you, Stephanie.